Good morning, class. Today we are going to revise the book exercises of lesson 9, Damon and Pythias, part 2. And first we solve the exercises, book exercises, and then take a practice with the vocabulary also. So I want you all to please carry your literature book with you. Okay, are you ready now? Now open your book at exercise 1, page number 100. It is 100, children. Yes. Now I'm going to share my screen with you. Look at my screen, children. The first exercise is the factual questions. Okay. The first is, how did Tommy react when he found the coins? So Tommy was astonished. Astonished means surprised to find the coins, and he ran to the house to find Nat, as Nat was under suspicions of everyone for stealing that money. So at first Tommy thought to inform Nat only. Okay. Now, why was everyone now willing to accept Nat's innocence? Why was everyone now willing to accept Nat's innocence? Everyone was willing to accept Nat's innocence because they could see that his surprise and pleasure at money being returned was sincere. When Tommy told Nat that he got the money, so as all the boys in that school were surprised, the same reaction was made by Nat also. So this reaction was so real that the rest of the boys also accepted that the Nat was not the culprit of this crime. He had not stolen the money. Then next question is, why did Dan need money? Where did he get it from? And how did everyone come to know about it? Here in this question, children, you can see it has three parts. So with such questions, we read one part and solve it in the same sequence. Clear? So the first part of this question is, why did Dan need money? So Dan said he needed money to return to Tommy. Okay. Now second part is, where did he get it from? So he got it by selling an expensive gifted book to the neighbor's son. Clear? Now the third part of this question is, how did everyone come to know about it? How did everyone come to know about it? So the book was returned to Mr. Bear with a note. Note means a letter was written with that return gift, saying that the book was worth more than $1, that her son has paid for it. Demi opened the package at the dinner table, and so everybody got to know about it. Clear? As that parcel was opened on the dinner table, and all the children were sitting with Mr. Bear at that table. So everyone came to know about whatever done by Dan. Clear? Now, then fourth question is, why were Mr. Bear and Mrs. Joe disappointed with Dan's behavior? Here is Mrs. Joe is Mr. Bear's wife. Clear? Now, Mr. Bear and Mrs. Joe were disappointed with Dan's behavior because he had stolen the money, then made an innocent person suffer from an unjust suspicion. And the worst of all was the use of underhand means to return the money. Here, children, three things have been mentioned for the Mr. and Mrs. Joe's disappointment. The first is dad had stolen the money. This was the first why Mrs. Joe and Mr. Bear were disappointed. The first thing, dad had stolen the money. The second thing, he had made an innocent person suffer just that suspicion. Okay. Now the third thing that was more disliked by Mr. and Mrs. Bear was the underhand mean to return the money. Underhand means he sold the book, then kept the money under the mower. So that is underhand mean. It was a coward act. So that had most disappointed Mr. and Mrs. Bear. Clear? Now next question is, What were the boys doing in the birch grove? And how did Dan save Jack from being badly injured? Again, the question has two parts. So, first, we answer both the parts sequentially. Then, first is what were the boys doing in the birch grove? So the boys were amusing themselves. Amusing means वो enjoy कर रहे थे, अपने आप मजा कर रहे थे. They were having fun. Clear? So the boys were amusing themselves by climbing up the birch trees and swinging down. वो birch tree पे चढ़कर झूल रहे थे. They were swinging. Okay. Now the second part is how did Dan save Jack? So Jack had climbed a very tall tree and its branches didn't bend enough. So he was left hanging at a dangerous height. When Dan saw that, he quickly climbed the same tree and his added weight pulled the branch closer to the ground and Jack jumped down safely. What happened? The tree Jack had climbed up, वो बहुत tall tree था. It was a tall tree. So when Jack hanged, when Jack tried to swing, so it was left hanging at a dangerous height. Jack जिस branch को झूल रहा था, as it was a tall tree, वो बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं bend हुई. So he was left hanging at a dangerous site. वो लैंड से अर्थ से बहुत दूर था. अगर वो वहां से जंप करता, if he had jumped from that height, he would have got hurt badly. So what solution had been found by Dan? When Dan saw that, when Dan saw Jack hanging at a dangerous height, he climbed the same tree. वो उसी tree पर चढ़ गया. Okay, and his added weight. Now two boys were hanging on the same branch, more weight was put on, so the branch bent a little more. As Dan had added his weight, so the branch bent a little more, और ज़्यादा झुक गई. Now it was safe for Jack to jump down, so he jumped safely. Cleared? Now next question is, what did Jack write in note to Mr. Behair? Here, what is the meaning of note? Note is the letter. The letter which was written by Jack. Okay? So that same letter is called note. So Jack wrote in the note that he had taken Tommy's money and it was hidden in his room. He had not cared when Nat was suspected but felt sad for Dan, who was brave and wrongly suspected for being a thief. He said that he was leaving for home and wished to give his all belongings to Dan. Children, as Dan had saved Jack's life, so he was obliged. And that is why he made a confession. And where he had made that confession? In that note. The note that he had written to Mr. Behair. Cleared? Now, the question number 7 is, what reasons did Dan give for lying about stealing the money? So Dan said that he had lied about stealing the money as he wanted to prevent the boys from troubling Nat, who was miserable on being the target of suspicion. Okay, as Nat was under suspicion, so he was being tormented by the boys. And being a true friend, Dan was not ready to see that see his friend in that miserable condition, and that is why he light. Clear? Now, let's come to exercise B, that is reference to the context. Read the following lines from the passage and answer the questions. We know that what we do in this, a question, a line or a statement or a dialogue is taken from the chapter and some questions based on that same line are asked. Okay, are being asked. So let's look at the line is, you may do what you like to me. I won't say another word about it. So children, can you guess who is speaking in this line? Yes, our first question is same. Who said these words to whom? So Dan said these words to Mr. Beher. Okay, about what did the speaker not want to say another word? Look, can you guess? He didn't wish to say anything more about selling the book and putting the money in the barn for Tommy to find. You may do what you like to. Just remember, just try to recall, children, in which condition Dan has spoken this line. What were the situations when he had to speak out these things? So here Dan is talking about what? Selling the book, that expensive book that he sold to the neighbor's son to get $1 that he wanted to return Tommy. Okay, so about what did the speaker not want to say anything? Dan didn't wish to say anything more about selling the book. Clear? Now, and putting the money in the barn for Tommy. Next question is, what do you think is meant by the words, you may do what you like to me? What is the meaning of this line? You may do what you like to me. Here, Dan is talking about the punishment. He is talking about the punishment that he is thinking that he deserved for all those underhand means that he applied to return the money. So, by these words, Dan means to say that Mr. Behet can punish him as he wishes. Cleared? Now look at the last question. What was the listener's reaction? Who is listener in this line, children? To whom Dan is talking? To Mr. Beher. So what was Mr. Beher's reaction at this statement? Mr. Beher felt sad and disappointed that Dan should have behaved in such an underhand manner. Mr. Beher and Mrs. Joe both were very disappointed. They were very sad. Dan has done this thing. The same thing is asked. What was their reaction? कैसा उनका reaction था? They were sad and disappointed. Okay, why they were disappointed? That Dan should have behaved in such an underhand manner. Now look at the second statement. The second statement is most discouraging of all was the attempt to return the money in an underhand way. What is this underhand way, children? Here, underhand way means wrong procedure, a wrong solution you find out. Clear? So the first question is who restored the money and to whom? Restored means here return. So who restored the money and to whom? So the money was restored by Dan to Tommy. Clear? Now look at the first B1. What were the bad and worse actions that preceded restoring of the money? So the bad action was taking or stealing the money, and the worst action was allowing an innocent person to be suspected unfairly of a crime that he had not committed. Clear? Okay, the bad thing of all these process was stealing the money. ये तो बहुत खराब बात थी. Okay, and the worst thing was what? That he made an innocent person. Nat was suffering that suspicion that the other boys have on him. Yes, so it was the worst part of all these that reaction, whatever action, sorry, whatever action being done by Dan. Okay, then what was the underhand way in which the money was restored? The underhand way used to return the money was to keep it in a place where Tommy was likely to find it with a slip saying Tom Banks. Okay, this is the original name of Tommy. Okay, Tom Banks. Now, next is why is the final action considered to be the most discouraging? The final action is considered to be the most discouraging because it showed shy behavior and lack of courage. Children, can you guess what was the final action? Here the question is talking about final action was selling the book and keeping that money inside the moor. That was the final action of all the whole this whole incident. So why this is considered as the most discouraging? Because Dan failed to miss instead of returning the money hand to hand, face to face. Dan has first sold the book stealthily without anyone's information and then kept it inside the moor with a note. So all these actions show that Dan was not at all courageous. He was not brave. He doesn't have the guts to face Tommy. It was a coward act. Okay. Now the third statement is I was afraid to tell before. I didn't care so much about Nat. But Dan is a trump and I can't stand it any longer. These lines were written by Jack in his note. Do you remember that? Okay, now let's see the first question. Who said these words? So these words were said by Jack. Why was the speaker afraid to tell the truth? He was afraid to tell the truth because he was coward and had allowed two other boys. Who are these two other boys? Dan and Nat. Okay, the two other boys to be suspected of stealing. Okay, why was the speaker afraid to tell the truth? Here, children, who has stolen the money? Jack had stolen the money. And who were the other two boys who had been suspected for that stealing? Dan and Nat. The first was Nat, the second was Dan. Dan lied that he had stolen the money. Am I right? Okay. So here Jack had made two innocent boys to suffer that blame. Okay. So that was, and that's why Jack was afraid of, means he was not that much brave to accept his fault face to face. He was coward. Now look at the next question. What happened to make the speaker call Dan a trump? Trump, do you remember? What is the meaning of trump? Trump means brave or a bully person. Okay, a courageous one. So Dan had saved Jack from a nasty fall from a tall tree, but had fallen himself. This made Jack a trump or a person whom people admire. Okay, now next. How did the speaker clear Dan's name? How did he try to make up with Dan? So he cleared Dan's name by writing a note in which he confessed to stealing the money. Then he tried to make up with Dan by asking to give his belongings to Dan. Cleared? Now let's come to exercise C, children. This exercise we will not do in notebook. This is only for discussion. Okay? Now look at the first is it was a kind lie. It was a kind lie, Dan, and I can't help forgiving it. But you see, it did no good, said Mr. Bear. What do you understand by the expression kind lie? And do you think these are more forgivable than other lies? Give reason. First of all, Mr. Behave is calling the lie told by Dan a kind lie. Why this? Do you remember what was the lie spoken out by Dan? Yes, Dan had taken the responsibility of that theft, that is stealing the money, for the sake of saving his friend. Okay, and who was the real culprit? Who had stolen that money? Jack. While Jack had stolen the money, but the responsibility of that theft was taken by Dan. So that is why Mr. Behair is calling it a kind lie. Okay, because Dan spoke this lie to save his friend Nat. Now, Do you think these are more forgivable than other lies? Of course, this lie can be forgiven. Why? Because this lie was spoken to save a friend. And the lies that are spoken to save a friend are always accepted as a good deed. Okay? And that is why that lie has been called as a kind lie by Mr. Bay. Clear? Now, next question is, by his own hand, Jack confessed that he is a thief, liar, and a coward. Do you think there are any good points in Jack and that he deserves forgiveness? With these, the words that have been used for Jack are the negative ones that have been seen in his character. A part of that, the writer wants to know some good points, the good the positive things in Jack's character. Yes, of course, he has shown the quality of a good human being, and that is why he made a confession while Dan had taken the responsibility of that threat. So Jack had a chance to escape, to save himself. Even then, when he had seen Dan saving his life, he was obliged. Jack was obliged, and as a good human being, he made his confession. A part of that, he has a sense of shame also. That is why he had made the confession through a note. Instead, means he was not finding himself able to face Mr. Behave. He was feeling guilty, and that is why he left his confession in the form of a note. A part of that, he was very much obliged. So this obligation that he had taken as by making his confession. So all these things show that somewhere Jack was also a good person and he deserved forgiveness. Clear? Now look at the third one. Find about Damon in Pythia. Do you think this is an appropriate title for this extract? Of course, it's an appropriate title for this extract. The first thing, children, to know the story of Damon and Pythia, I have left one web content in that your school app. Second thing, in a brief, I just want to conclude what who are Damon and Pythia. The children, Damon and Pythias were the two friends. It is the story of two friends who made sacrifices to save each other. And same kind of sacrifice we see made by Dan also in the story. And that is why this title has been given to this extract. Okay, where Damon and Pythias have made the personal sacrifices to save each other's lives, same as Dan has also not cared for his own image. He was not worried that what the children are going to think about him, what Mr. Behir and Mrs. Joe will think about him when they come to know about his all these wrong deeds. But he was thinking about his friend, not only. He just want to take him out from this problem. Okay, and that's why he spoke lie that he had stolen the money. So somewhere he had made a personal sacrifice to save his friend, and that the same quality he had shown, the quality that was shown by Damon and Pythias for each other. And that is why this title is appropriate for this extract. Clear? Now let's come to the fourth one. It kept the boys troubling Nat. That's why I did it. It made him miserable. I didn't care so much, explained Nat. Discuss Dan's character in the light of this explanation he gives for his action. Children, here the writer has called Dan a Trump. Even Jack has also called Dan Trump. So Trump means a person who has who possesses the quality of bravery, who has lots of courage. The one who has guts to face any challenge, and all these qualities we see in Dan's character. Okay, a part of that, Dan has shown the quality of a good friend also. He was a real, true friend. That's why he stood with his friend, Nat, in all his thick and thins. Clear? So somewhere Dan has expressed a positive image. Dan has created a positive image in this story. Okay. Now let's come to exercise. Here, children, look at the grammar part. This is direct and reporting speech, reported speech. So this topic is not taught to you, so I am skipping it right now. Later when we study this topic, I will touch back. Now let's come to the word wise. It is at page number 103. Okay, here match the phrasal verbs with their meanings. Look at carry on. Carry on means to continue an activity. Then look up to. Look up to means find some information by consulting a relevant book. Okay, we see now, we normally say that look up its meaning in the dictionary. Same thing is. Then give up. Give up means admit defeat. Give up means never, but we always take it as a positive. Never give up. Never. So she is making an effort. Now tell off. Tell off is to scold or speak angrily to someone. Now look forward to is await eagerly. Then look up again. Look up is respect someone a great deal. And the last phrase is get along with. Get along means have a good relationship with someone. So children, this you better do it in your book only. No need to do it in your notebook. Now let's talk about the glossary. What is that? The first word is that is denied. The first the first word I have taken, that is denied. So denied means declared as untrue, children. Untrue means denied means refuse karna. When you say no to something, when you don't accept anything, so that you deny. Suppose you made a request to me and I said no, ऐसा नहीं करना है. So what I have done, I denied. मैंने मना कर दिया, इनकार कर दिया. So that is denied. Okay, now as the structure of the word is telling, it's a verb. Now look at the second word, revelation. Revelation is, it's a noun. Revelation means reveal or disclosure, means to open something, to tell something. Suppose you have told me a secret, but I have not kept it a secret. I told it to everybody. आपका secret मैंने सबको बता दिया. So what I have made a revelation for your secret. Okay, of your secret. You, the thing that is known to everybody, सबको पता चल जाए. So that is revelation, means the, it has been revealed to everyone. रिविलेशन मीन्स डिस्क्लोजर, ओपन कर दिया गया सबको. ओके, नाउ बता दिया गया सबको. द थर्ड वर्ड इज बर्च. Birch is a type of tree, children. A tree with a slanted trunk and branches. You can see its picture on my screen. Clear? Now, the fourth word is grudge. The grudge means nursed a feeling of ill will. Means grudge means you can say that resentment or having developed an enmity for someone. You know, bad feelings for someone. जब आप किसी के लिए बुरा सोचने लगते हैं, so that I am having a grudge for that person. Okay, जब आप किसी को अपना enemy समझने लगते हैं, you start thinking about negative about that person. तो आप क्या कर रहे हैं? You have developed a grudge against that person. Okay, now Trump. Trump is a person who suppresses others, a bully or rowdy person. Okay, who whether you can say a courageous one, जो बिल्कुल हर challenge को accept करता है, that is Trump. Okay, then rousing hooray. Rousing hooray means loud and excited cheering. Here rousing means loud and excited, and hooray, hooray is an introduction. You know that when you feel happy, you say, "Na hooray, we have won the match." It's a very common sentence spoken with hooray. Okay, hooray. So that hooray is cheering, and rousing means loud and excited cheering. That is known as rousing hooray. Now, anxiously. Anxiously means worriedly. बहुत परेशान हो जाना. Whenever you are late to your home, so your parents wait for you anxiously. Okay, and when your exams are over, so you wait for your result anxiously. है ना, परेशान हो जाते हैं. That is anxiously. Now, sternly. Sternly means in a serious and severe manner. जो बहुत सीरियस होके आप किसी चीज को सोचते हैं, फर्मली किसी चीज को करते हैं, तो दैट इज स्टर्नली. Okay, I have taken an stern decision, or I am trying to finish my work sternly, or I will try to continue this discussion sternly, means बहुत ही seriously मैं इसको handle करने की कोशिश करूंगा. Okay, now the last word is stubborn. Stubborn means headstrong or adamant, means the person who is not ready to change his mind. Once set is set forever. So that person is stubborn. Had a strong person, but this is not a positive that trait, children. It's not a good thing. We should not be stubborn. Being stubborn with your targets, your aims is good, but being stubborn with the wrong things is very wrong. Okay, now so that's all for today, children. This is okay. I must tell you that there is a sample question I have left in your homework column. So must solve it in rough notebook. Once again, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.